After an increasing number of Senate Republicans announced that they would work with House Republicans to kill a bipartisan Senate border bill, President Biden made an address to the American people, torching the Republican Party and Donald Trump, and promising that if they do this, he will work aggressively between now and the election to make sure the American people know to blame Republicans. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert buttons before you go. Greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, we have several clips to play, mostly from President Biden's speech, where he was very candid with the American people and very fierce with the Republican Party and their cowardice. But before we play those clips, I want to remind you of what the stage was. So Lindsey Graham, Senate Republican who is a Trump sycophant, this is what he had to say just a couple of weeks ago about the the bipartisan Senate border bill. He says, to those who think that if Donald Trump wins, which I hope he does, that we can get a better deal, you won't. You got to get 60 votes in the United States Senate. To my Republican friends, to get this kind of border security without granting a pathway to citizenship is really unheard of. So if you think you're going to get a better deal next time in 25, if Donald Trump's president, Democrats will be expecting a pathway to citizenship for that. So to my Republican colleagues, this is a historic moment to reform the border. But Donald Trump obviously wanted to use it as a wedge issue ahead of the election, given that his record and his policies are terrible and unpopular. So finally, after weeks of pressure, privately to not only House Republicans, but also Senate Republicans, it seems to have worked. Mitch McConnell, who supported the bipartisan efforts, publicly folded earlier today. McConnell, overruled by his Senate GOP members, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and former President Donald Trump, conceded it had no path to passage. We had a very robust discussion about whether or not this product could ever become law, and it's been made pretty clear to us by the Speaker that it will not become law, McConnell told reporters. So I want to congratulate Senator James Lankford, who led the Republicans in negotiating this bill, on a remarkable job of negotiating with the other side, getting the support of the Border Council. But it looks to me and most of our members as if we have no real chance here to make it a law. John Kennedy, a Republican senator, put it more bluntly, according to this report, the bill is deader than 4 o'clock. So that's where we are. So Republicans are saying that because the House won't support it, they're not even going to vote for it, which of course is quite politically cowardly, because you could still make a statement to the American people that, hey, we Senate Republicans take this seriously and we want to address it. But McConnell is playing politics, and he puts political expediency over principle time and time again. This is how it was said on Fox News in terms of how President Biden is going to pitch it to the American people.
But as an election year issue, keeping the chaos at the border as it is benefits him. That's why President Biden came out and said, I'm going to hammer on Trump every day between now and the election and tell the American people every day that the reason why the border is not secure is because of Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans.
That is exactly what he's going to do, as indicated by this speech. So President Biden from the White House addressed the American people, and this is what he had to say.
The result of all this hard work is a bipartisan agreement that represents the most fair, humane reforms in our immigration system in a long time, and the toughest set of reforms to secure the border ever. Now, all indications are this bill won't even move forward to the Senate floor. Why? A simple reason: Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump thinks it's bad for him politically. Therefore, he doesn't, even though it helps the country, he's not for it. He'd rather weaponize this issue than actually solve it. So for the last 24 hours, he's done nothing, I'm told, but reach out to Republicans in the House and the Senate and threaten them and try to intimidate them to vote against this proposal. And it looks like they're caving. Frankly, they owe it to the American people to show some spine.
To show some spine. Well, the Republican Party, particularly elected Republicans, are a group of collective invertebrates anyway, so that would be quite a feat. Another clip from the president's speech.
The position of the MAGA Republicans can be characterized by the New York Times headline. First, and this is the headline, it reads, Trump first, Putin second, America third.
I think that's absolutely correct. And quite frankly, it's being generous, because you could probably put a bunch of other things there. Wall Street, number 3. Not entirely sure that America even cracks the top 5 to elected Republicans. Another moment.
We're going to secure the border and fund these other programs. Trump and the MAGA Republicans said no, because they're afraid of Donald Trump. Afraid of Donald Trump. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. It's time for Republicans in the Congress to show a little courage, to show a little spine, to make it clear to the American people that you work for them, not for anyone else. I know who I work for. I work for the American people.
But unfortunately, the Republican Party is an authoritarian cult of personality. They don't work for the American people. My God, I mean, if they did, they would have infinitely more popular policies and infinitely more effective policies. Time and time again, Republicans are on the wrong side of what the majority of Americans want. And they even propose policies which hurt their own base and constituents. The Republican Party, for decades, has not been on the side of the American people.
Look, I understand the former president is desperately trying to stop this bill because he's not interested in solving the border problem. He wants a political issue to run against me. They've all but said that across the board. No one really denies that I'm aware of. The American people want a solution that puts an end to the empty political rhetoric which has failed to do anything for so long. We have to get the resources to the border to get the job done. So Republicans have to decide, who do they serve? Donald Trump or the American people? Are they here to solve problems or just weaponize those problems for political purposes? I know my answer. I serve the American people. I'm here to solve problems. It's
absolutely correct. But again, the Republican Party, I've told you this before, in the equivalent of the metaphor of a three-legged race of American politics, where Republicans and Democrats are supposed to work together in at least somewhat good faith, right? Even if they disagree about the pace of the run and the particular, specific path, they should at least have a general direction of common ground in mind. And yet the Republican Party is politically incentivized to drop to the ground and bite the ankles and knees and grab the legs of the other person in the three-legged race. All they do is either point at problems which exist, exacerbate problems which exist, or manufacture problems in the first place. They have forfeited their obligation to be a responsible governing party, and they get rewarded for it. So there's also an impetus for the American people to actually hold Republicans accountable and say it's not enough for you to complain about things or for you to create things to complain about. You actually need to solve problems. And President Biden's record is infinitely more robust in that respect than Donald Trump. The last clip here I want to play is Biden getting very, very direct with what he intends to do with his time if Republicans fail to follow through on their bipartisan commitments.
Immediately. But if the bill fails, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The American people are going to know why it failed. I'll be taking this issue to the country, and the voters are going to know that it's not just a moment. Just at the moment, we're going to secure the border and fund these other programs. Trump and the MAGA Republicans said no, because they're afraid of Donald Trump. Afraid of Donald Trump. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends.
Excellent. I mean, here's the reality. President Biden should understand that immigration is a polling issue that benefits Republicans. It's simply a fact. But there is time if the president, if Democratic surrogates, if the mainstream media simply report the facts. And we're going to do a video where it seems to be, in at least some cases, that is the case, and then in other cases, not so much. But if the mainstream media doesn't create a false equivalence, if they report the facts, if they don't feel obligated to create some sort of equal moral culpability for something which is so clearly the fault of Republicans, then in 9 months, the president stands a good chance of at least closing that gap by relentlessly hammering home across the country that it's because of Republicans that this bipartisan bill failed to pass. Not Democrats, not Biden, Republicans and Republicans alone. And that's why, for various other reasons, if you want a responsible governing party to be in Washington, to be in power by the next election, then I would argue rationality dictates and records dictate that you should vote blue in November in every single election you can. Republicans under Donald Trump cannot be trusted with a shred of power. And this is yet another example of why that's simply the case. Let me know what you think in the comments.